Welcome to our latest Hippocratic Adventures chat, where we talk about everything related to practicing medicine abroad. I'm your host, Dr. Ashwini Bapat, a US-trained palliative care physician now living in Portugal. And of course, if you haven't already, join our weekly email newsletter. This is where we share job opportunities, inspiring stories, and strategies to help you move abroad. You can sign up now at hippocraticadventures.com/subscribe. All right, so today I'm here with Dr. Carrie Reynolds. Dr. Carrie Reynolds is an American pediatric gastroenterologist who moved to Carcassonne, France in September 2024. She's well known for her work on Hippocratic Hustle, the podcast, which is focused on helping women physicians find freedom in their life, work, and finances. She's also been super fascinated by the FIRE movement, the financial independent retire early movement in the US, and she is now exploring geographic arbitrage in the beautiful south of France. She supports her family by doing locum tenens. She also works as a relocation specialist and an independent real estate sales agent for Vesper Immobilier and Consulting. She is married to an American general surgeon and has a 14-year-old daughter who is currently enrolled in French school, or French public school. It is in French, of course.
That's right. It is in French. Yeah.
So before we get started, smash that subscribe button, sit back, and enjoy. So Carrie, I am so excited to talk with you today because I feel like your story has been in progress for a while. And
Yes.
I am so excited to hear about your move. What made you move? What made you choose France? Where were you in life when you made this move?
Yeah. Great question. I know. And everybody asks me this question all the time. Obviously, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah,
I mean, if we need to start like way
let's
back
go back.
when,
Let's go back.
okay. When I was 16, well, before I even know I was 16, I started studying French and I absolutely adored learning languages. I was so fascinated by it. And so when I was 16, my mom encouraged me to go do a study abroad program for a summer. And so I came to Toulouse, which is a beautiful town in the south of France, down here in the southwest of France. And I stayed with a lovely, lovely French family that was amazing. It was, I mean, now I can say it was life-changing, although it was hard to see the future back then. Obviously, I was just having a good time as a 16-year-old in France. But I learned a little bit in school, but when I got there and got with the family that really didn't speak much English, I just absolutely soared with the language. And so I was catapulted basically. And actually what fascinated me most about it was communication. I think actually just looking at myself, communication has always been my why, I guess, of like why I do what I do, why I do what I do in medicine, why I do what I do with real estate. And it makes sense that communicating is, in another language is also a fascination of mine. So yeah. So I went to university with the hope of doing something very international. I went to a college that had a lot of international programs and that supported that. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, so I didn't have a really good direction throughout my university time. I majored in medieval history, ancient Greece and Rome. So, I mean, because I was so interested in the south of France and like the Mediterranean region and everything. So I definitely obviously pursued that. But then, what do you do with that degree, So, and also in university, I studied abroad in Clermont-Ferrand in France as well. So I had more opportunity to develop my language skills, and I didn't major or minor in French because I didn't care about literature. At a certain point, you get all the language study classes out of the way, and then you have to do literature and writing, and I didn't care about that. I just wanted to communicate. So no, unfortunately, no degree, but I learned the skills, and I didn't use those skills, quite honestly, for many years because I met my husband who was pre-med. And after I graduated from undergrad, I thought, what am I going to do? And he was pre-med, and I was kind of like thinking about what I liked. And I'm just, I'm just kind of a nerd at heart, and I'm just like fascinated by everything around me. So when he had all of his medical books laying around, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And so I basically pursued going into medicine. So I kind of came back as a non-traditional student back then. I felt like I was old, but I wasn't that old because I had to go back and do all the pre-med stuff outside of the normal traditional route. but I went to medical school. I became a pediatrician, and then I went to fellowship and did pediatric gastroenterology. Fast forward, I was in private practice for 5 years. And when that wasn't working out, I really didn't feel like I had a voice in that group. I decided to quit, and I had learned about locum tenens as a way to, practice medicine. And at that time, I had already launched the Hippocratic Hustle podcast, which, if anybody's familiar with that, is a podcast that really explored um, opportunities that we have as physicians outside of medicine. I think that's because I have so many interests outside of medicine myself. And I see so many people who, my husband included, who, had been wanting to be doctors since they were children.
Mm.
And they get on that route and they don't explore the other aspects and, parts of their personality and interests. And so I think then they feel really kind of pigeonholed into medicine. And my whole my whole outlook on life is that we are not like, doctor doesn't have to be your everything that you are. You are also a person, and you also have interests, and you also could do other careers. I mean, the average person changes careers many times in their life. Like, I think we also as physicians feel that urge as well. And whether that be going into administration or, just kind of transferring into a different type of role, that could be one way to do it. But if you feel that pull, you're not abnormal, and you're you're totally normal, and it's okay. And it's okay to pursue even other careers, which I have also done, because I'm just so interested in things and I can't stop. Quite honestly, it's kind of a problem maybe, but no, but I can't stop exploring, and I can't stop looking for, I don't know. I swear I have 9 lives. I don't want us to stop with just one career. So anyway, here I am.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I just feel like what you said about being a physician and having other interests and that you can pursue different careers, that really resonates with me because I do feel like within the culture of medicine, med school training, all of that, being a physician becomes like almost 100% your identity. I mean, it's such an integral part of who you are. And to the exclusion of all the other things you want to
Right.
be, could be, you are. And so it is kind of tricky because when I look at my friends who are not in medicine, they have changed careers and jobs like almost every other
Right.
year, they're changing
Right.
positions. And when I asked them about it, like one of my friends was in sales, then she was in marketing, then she's a data analyst for like retail companies. Then she switched into the nonprofit sector to help them with like social media and marketing to help them get more donations, like things like that. And I'm like, wow, that's like totally different. You went from retail to a nonprofit. You went from sales and marketing to like social media management. Um, what like, and you have a degree in economics, like you have a master's in economics. How is that at all related? And she's like, well, every position I get, I pick up new skills and I'm like
Yeah.
developing them. I learn something new. And then I move on to a different position that usually has higher pay, better benefits, and more autonomy or more kind of ability for me to be a director or a manager or a higher position. And I feel like that isn't something that happens as a physician as often. Like I feel like the
Yeah.
majority of the colleagues I have or mentors I have, they've been in that position for years. They've kind of grown up in that environment, in that whether it's private practice or in that university, and there hasn't been that opportunity to explore things outside of it. So I
Hmm.
feel like that really kind of resonates with me.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you early on had actually other experience, like other interests. So at some point, you got into real estate. So how did that
I
happen?
did. Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of my other careers. So when I was doing locum tenens, in America, I was, working 2 weeks a month, at most. And sometimes there were some lulls in between, jobs as well, where I had 6 or 8 weeks off. And being one that can't stay still and could not just sit at home, not pursuing other things, I was really fascinated by real estate. And I think that was just something I discovered as I had bought and sold my own personal home, a few times as we were going through, fellowship and moving and things like that. And I never could stop looking at properties. Like once I bought a house, I didn't want to stop. I couldn't just stop. So I realized that I had been fascinated by that career as well. And my cousin is actually a really great, amazing real estate agent in Denver. And so I talked to her about, could I do this? And thankfully, the barrier to entry into real estate is actually pretty easy. So it was easy to get into, but obviously it's not an easy job to keep. So because it's a challenging job. So even though it's a little bit easy to get the license and do everything, it's still a challenge. But anyway, I was able to practice real estate for a few years and help a number of physicians actually buy and sell their homes, and then some other people as well. But super fun to just provide customer service like real estate has frequently does not see, because we're, as physicians, we're on call for our patients. We're on call for the hospital, and I'm on call for my clients as well. I feel like, I kind of feel like that. And thankfully, real estate agent or real estate customers do not call you at midnight, so it's fine. But so I just felt like I could provide really good customer service and really good communication throughout the process, because it's complicated to buy and sell your own home. It's scary and it's a lot of money. And um, I really think in that transaction, people people are, should have, good customer service, good support, and good communication. So I was able to provide that for my clients there. And more recently, I was able to translate that here to France because of my interest in trying to come abroad. And I started trying to find ways to come abroad probably 2 years ago, actually, to start the whole process. And um, I was trying to find ways, visas, all the things that you do when you're trying to figure out how does this work. Um, and one of the ways that I was able to find was to actually continue my real estate career in France. And because I've learned so much, again, as a physician, we throw ourselves deeply into the literature, and I had done the same with this project as well. So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge that I can share and help. Hopefully, some other physicians feel like they could find some freedom if that's what they really desire and this is their dream, to live abroad, to help them do that.
And so around 2 years ago, when you were starting to think about moving abroad, um, were you kind of bent on moving to France in particular because you had these experiences in the past and you clearly had kind of linguistic connection, something that you enjoyed? And how did your husband and your daughter react to that?
Great question. So to begin with, during COVID, Italy had been the last country that we had visited just prior. In fact, my daughter at the time when we did that trip, she was 9 years old. That was her first international trip. We had waited until she was 9. And in fact, my husband and I had not traveled. My husband actually did study abroad in South Africa. And he's also done some language study in Mexico as well. So he's super interested in living abroad and traveling as well. But throughout medical school and residency and fellowship, we didn't travel. We didn't go anywhere. We barely even visited family. It was horrible. So finally, when my daughter was 9, we finally said, okay, I think we have the money and the bandwidth to go to Italy. So we did kind of like a bucket list. We did all the tourist things in Rome and Naples, and we did
Wow.
that in November of 2019. So that was just before COVID. So COVID started, and we were deep in YouTube, basically, of how to move to Italy. That was like our thing. I mean, we even had paid, some influencer, to talk to them, like they do some consulting. Like we actually did that during COVID, and it's just so funny how we were so into Italy because that was just the last experience that we had. And honestly, at that point, I hadn't been to France since I left in university. I hadn't
Wow.
been back. Yeah, because Italy was the first. My husband always wanted to go to Italy, so we went to Italy first, and I was always planning on coming back here, but it had been 25 years since I had been to France, which was just, I know, it's just like I can't believe so much time had passed. So anyway, finally, COVID ended. We finally felt, the freedom to travel again. And my daughter and I came for an extended trip because I was doing locums. So we had about 3 weeks that we had to come and travel. And so we spent two of it, my daughter and I, in France, reconnecting with my host family, traveling around the south of France, just taking her to Paris, just seeing all these places I hadn't seen in 25 years. And all of it came back, including the language, which I was really afraid about. And so it all came back like a flood. And I got back like immediately, was like to my husband, I was like, why are we talking about retiring early in Italy? This is silly. We need to come to France. It's just, and the more I looked into it as well, as far as like visa and bureaucracy and just overall infrastructure, France is a very organized country, although we do have bureaucracy. Obviously, we're quite well known for it. I think, bureaucracy comes from the French.
Yeah.
So we identified that Italy was, at least from anecdotal evidence, was much harder to actually acquire the visas that you hear about and go through all those steps. And it's like, why do that when we don't speak Italian? I mean, I was really excited about learning Italian for sure, and I will get on that at one point, at some point. But I was like, I speak French. I know people here. I have, whole host family here in Toulouse. I have, you know, just in the community here, the expat community here is amazing too. So once I started just kind of digging into that, it just was obvious that I didn't have to look any further. I didn't have to look at Spain. I didn't have to look at Portugal. France was great. And it's also quite supportive for expats moving here too. So that works out.
And did your husband and daughter, did they get on board like immediately? Were they thrilled about it, or was there resistance there?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was treading lightly. It was a little bit as a, a funny thing that I had to just kind of explore a little bit slowly with the family, because obviously this had been my lifelong dream, kind of suppressed, but it was, once it came out, to come back here and live. And so I had to kind of gradually introduce that. Of course, my husband was already thinking about retiring early in Italy. So when I kind of explained France to him, I had to take him to France. He'd spent more time in Italy on vacation than he
Okay.
had in France at all. So we had to come back and kind of look at some towns, and kind of, I had to like present France to him. He realized that even the Mediterranean region of France looks very similar to Italy. We actually have the same trees, as Tuscany. We have kind of similar terrain, actually. Even, the Roman, ruins are here, just as just like in
Lovely.
Tuscany. We have all of that. We have olive trees. We have citrus trees. We have all the things that you think about with Italy. And our auto route is better kept. I don't know. So,
And your daughter, because she is 14 right now, so she was
yep.
maybe in middle school back then?
Yeah, so she actually, this school year, she would have been in a freshman in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So this also kind of prompted this. We kind of thought about, we have an only child, so we just have one. And we kind of thought about retiring early when she was done with high school. But having an only child, it didn't sit right with us to say, we're moving to France, you're here in university, bye. We didn't like that. We're kind of a tight family. So we didn't feel good about that. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, we need to move as a family unit. And I think the best time is to get her integrated into French society, so that, maybe if she chooses, she can go to French schools and university when she's done. She might have more opportunity in that regard. And so we need to do it now. Basically, I talked to some people who had done it before, and it's always the earlier the better, no matter what. That's the answer with kids. You don't even have to think about it. The earlier the better. But there's plus minus. It really depends on the child, but there's no time that's wrong. I've known families here who've moved with their kids who are older, and it worked out very well. And so it was a natural transition also, because in France, middle school goes for 4 years. So actually, she is now in the last year of middle school here in France. So that's collège. That's what they call here. And then there's 3 years of lycée, which is high school. So she's just basically doing her last year of collège here. And then she'll be in lycée next year. So we're really hoping that we'll see where her language is at the end of the year. But we anticipate, and a lot of other families who have done this as well at about the same age have been able to go on and do lycée after doing the last year of collège. So we will see. To be determined for sure about how that will. in France, it's very common to what they call redouble classes, which means just, be held back a year. About 20% or so of classes do that. So, that's an option as well if we need to. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And so then did she start learning French before starting school in September or
so yes, except I call it emergency French because we
Sure.
decided to do this over the summer, just prior to moving here. And so I actually found our high school actually provided our if you didn't get into the language that you wanted at our school, we actually had the opportunity to do a distance learning program for credit. And so I learned about that, and they actually had a kind of shortened course for the first year of French. So she did American high school first year French in the summer just prior to us leaving. So she had a little bit under feet, but really while it was really good education, it was a really short period of time to settle it. But she's gotten here and started taking the French as a foreign language classes, and she knows more than some of the other students who just kind of came here fresh. So it helped for sure. And everything you can do will help.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think living in France itself helps big time. I mean,
yeah,
I just think about the number. I think I spent about 8 years learning Spanish from like sixth grade through high school through
yeah.
college. And it was okay. Like I was able to talk to patients and stuff. But what was really incredible is that then when I moved to Portugal, I started learning Portuguese from scratch. And within 2 years, my Portuguese surpassed my Spanish like
Oh,
by miles, by like thousands of miles. And so
yeah,
it's like, wow, I've been studying Spanish for like 10 years. I'm here in Portugal for 2 years and my Portuguese is already better. Like that's ridiculous because immersion is so powerful.
absolutely.
And so what has it been like for you now? So are you splitting, so you're working as a real estate agent in
Yeah,
France,
yeah.
helping folks relocate. But you're also splitting time in the US, is that correct? Are you loving this conversation and wondering how you too can move abroad? Then you've got to download our completely free cheat sheet that walks you through the 3 steps to kickstart your own adventure abroad. Download it at www.hippocraticadventures.com/subscribe.
Yeah, France actually has it's really nice for their schedule. For school schedules, they go from September 1st or the Monday that's closest to September 1st through the end of June. And then they have July, August off as full holidays. So they in that time, the school year, they actually go work in the school. They're in school for 6 weeks and then they're off for 2 weeks. Every vacation that they take here is a 2 week vacation. So we had a 2 week vacation for All Saints Day. And we had we're going to have a 2 week vacation for Christmas. There's one in February, 2 week vacation, and another in April.
Wow,
And then
okay.
we have the 2 months. So that is basically every 6 weeks I can work 1 week. So that was because I didn't explain, but my husband's still in the States, kind of still working. So he's working on wrapping things up. But but that's my plan. I will say when you are limited, because I am limited because I need childcare. So,
Right.
I can't just leave her here and go to work. But when you're doing locums, it does help to have a little bit more of a flexible schedule, availability for jobs. But I'm looking at some sites that might have that flexibility. So that's my plan, is to continue looking for work that will take those weeks, and I'm getting close. I was hoping to be able to say I'm signed up, but today, but I haven't gotten the email yet. But
Okay.
but anyway, but I know some other doctors who have done this where they just travel back and forth, and really, I mean, we're very fortunate as physicians, especially in the locums world, to be paid fairly for our work and at an American US rate that's
Yeah.
appropriate for an American US doctor. The cost of living here is much less. So that's what I say about geographic arbitrage, is that we can live much cheaper here in France. And, so we really don't need to work as many weeks of locums as I was doing before. I really was working 50% of the time away from home back then. So this was an opportunity for me to cut back on my locums, really pursue some interests, spend some time with my daughter that I had kind of lost a little bit because I was traveling so much for work. So Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I get the few weeks that I'm going to do for locums, I'll be quite content
Yeah.
keeping, and I also want to keep my license up as a fallback, but I'll be quite content to just to do a few weeks here and there. So
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
fantastic. I think that's such a great way to to be able to live like there are like I'm thinking of just this trauma surgeon that I interviewed that I had a chat with about a year or two ago who was doing something very similar where she was living in Barcelona at the time, and she had kept her kind of academic position in the US, and so she would travel back, I think, every so often to do time in the operating room and keep up her surgical skills.
yeah,
The rest of the time she would be in Spain, kind of enjoying that time. Doing research was her thing. Um, so I always think like every physician I talk to on this, they have this different way of living abroad that works for them, which I think is
yeah,
cool. And it doesn't have to be just the one, like there isn't just one way to do it. I mean, what's really cool about you is that you had developed this other interest in real estate, and that has been kind of your ticket, which to living in France in many ways. So are you a EU citizen then, or how is that immigration process work?
immigration. Yeah, no, I'm not an EU citizen. I
Okay.
did, my maiden name is Snohowski. I did look into Polish citizenship, and I encourage anybody who has some Polish background to look into it because it's a possibility for sure. And there's agencies that will really help you navigate it. There's some other countries as well, Ireland, Lithuania, I believe. So there's some other options for that. So highly recommend that if that's an option for you. Unfortunately, because of just the way that the dates that uh, my family was born in the generations before me made me not eligible.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, so I tried that. And then I looked into what other ways I could get visas. Now, as an aside, doing locums, I could just live here and do locums and get a very simple visa, which would be a long stay visitor visa. So that is definitely an option for physicians who want to come here without a business activity. And France is at the time of this recording, incredibly open to Americans coming, and it's quite easy actually. You really just have to show that you have annual salary or income or savings that's equal to French minimum wage. And so that they know that you're not going to be destitute when you get here. There's a few other things that you have to do, but honestly, you really don't have to show much more than just that you can financially support yourself. And it's really somewhere around 22-ish thousand euro a year for one person in a family. It's not double, it's a little bit more than that percentage wise. But anyway, so it's not very much. And so that's a very easy way. And I know the doctors that I know who are doing locums in the States, that's how they're doing it. But uh, anyway, but I decided I wanted to come on a business activity because I can't just do locums and just sit at home. I know that about myself. So I opted to go a different route where if you're an independent contractor, the equivalent of that here in France, and you have a business activity that will serve in some way the French community, and is something that you can do independently, then you can kind of petition the government to say, hey, this is my business plan, and does this work for you? And they can give you permission to come and work in that business.
Okay,
So
so it's the real estate business that became your kind of ticket to immigrating to France then.
yeah, that's how I ran my visa, was via that route. Mainly because I have such strong interest and I really do want to make it my primary activity ultimately. And so I'm actively working on building the business here. And yeah, so that's, yeah. But in general, especially physicians who are listening to this, they probably would end up doing the visitor visa, which is very simple. And even the business visa, if you have some sort of specific idea in mind, it's pretty straightforward for an American applying. And you apply from the United States and you put together a business plan. And again, you show that you can support yourself so that when you get here, because you're not going to have business straight away,
Yeah.
that you won't be destitute. Um, but yeah, and my daughter's here on a education visa. So basically, it's very simple. And well, it's even simpler for her. So that was simple. But she does have her own visa.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
that even a dependent needed their own visa.
Yeah, they do. But for that, it's like your parent is moving to the States, so it makes sense that you are going to come. It's really no problem.
Okay.
That's yeah.
Okay.
You just have to they just have to show that they have proper support and the proper paperwork. Like my husband's still in America, so I had to show that he approves of our time here and things like that
Okay.
legally. So,
Okay.
yep, but very
And
simple.
so what has it been like then now that so you actually just decided this in the summer, you moved in
I
September
did.
and for school starting. You've gotten a couple months under your belt. What has it been like to live in Carcassonne, to live in France now?
It's absolutely amazing. It's, in fact, it's almost mind blowing. Because when I think about, when I think about if I had to go home, I think about, I don't know, it's hard. Gosh, I know I want to say immigrant, not expat. As an immigrant to France, it's so hard to express. But for me, it's the quality of life here. It's the pace of life. And something about society here is different. And so that supports just having better quality of life, even if, I don't know, I'm not in a business or whatever. I make my own hours. So in theory, I could work as hard as I want, but the society around you kind of slows you down a little bit. So for example, um, most businesses here are closed from noon to 2 for lunch for 2 hours. And my
Mm.
daughter at school, school is, they have 2 hour lunch
Yeah,
because you must take 2 hours for lunch.
great,
And it's like,
obviously.
obviously, yeah. No, I mean, it's just, even if we go downtown and sometimes I meet her for lunch and we come out and we go to a restaurant. So the restaurants are open from noon to 2. And, and then we're like, oh, let's go to the bookstore and get some school supplies or whatever. No, it's closed. You can't. So it just forces you to be like, that's okay. We're going to have a slow lunch. We're going to sit here and we're going to talk. We're going to sit here and enjoy our food. At lunch, we're going to have literally 3 courses, because you do. It's just it's just what you do. And then you have coffee at the end.
Great.
And the same thing for business meetings. Like I was actually looking to buy my own home and I was looking at properties with a real estate agent for a few hours before they were the sellers. And I had a couple properties that I wanted to see. And so there was a 2 hour break where we took our break from each other and she did whatever. She probably had a nice lunch. I had a nice lunch and we came back. But in America, we would have plowed through. We would have plowed straight through lunch. We would have stopped at, fast food or someplace really quick to grab a bite. We would have eaten in the car. It's just like that is like not done here. So, and grocery stores tend to be closed on Sunday. There is one that's open till noon. So it's like Sundays, everything's closed. So it really encourages you because I've been frustrated by that even when I've gotten here because I have a teenager who wants to go clothes shopping. She needs some clothes, this or that. And we can't do it on Sunday. But what we've done instead, because when we realized, well, we can't go shopping, which is what we would have done in America, we would have gone to Target, we would have gone to the mall, whatever. We've gone to the tourist places, we've toured around, we've driven around and looked at the countryside and yeah, and had time to talk. Oh my gosh. And even my daughter at that time, we were driving around the countryside and I said, what do you like about France? And she said, it's warm. And I was like, what do you mean? It's not temperature warm because fall was coming. It was a little chilly. She's like, no, it's just warm. It just feels different. It's warm. I think I'm still not sure exactly how to interpret what she was saying, but I kind of got it. It's like, it's a little bit cozy. It's a little bit, people talk. I can't
Oh
even,
my God. Yeah.
I know. And it's so hard to explain, but at school, it's totally illegal to have your phone out. You
Wow.
must keep in your bag. Do not pull it out. It is bad for anybody to see your phone at all.
Wow.
Thankfully, my daughter got some special permission to use Google Translate, so she had special permission. But she does not text me. She does not, before she would text me in between classes or at lunch. They would only have an hour at her American school, and everybody would be on their phone.
Wow.
But at lunch here, it's 2 hours. Even if they eat in the canteen, they eat and then they go out to the courtyard and they hang out.
Yeah.
And, my daughter reads a book, she'll draw, she teaches the kids like hand slapping,
Yeah.
they're working their way out, like how they're going to have their friendships without having
Yeah.
great language. But yeah. And so she actually, from the get-go and still to this day, says she prefers French school over American school.
Wow. She prefers
Yeah.
French school, even though she's building up her French skills. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Even
Uh,
though she doesn't understand anything, she
right,
does.
right. Which
Yeah, we're
wouldn't
getting there.
happen, but like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible. I always, my friends here, they laugh anytime I tell them that, like, oh, when I was a kid and we wanted to get dinner, like, maybe we just finished like basketball or something and we
Yeah.
wanted to grab a quick dinner. We would go through the drive-through at McDonald's, get the Happy Meal, and we would eat the nuggets and fries like in the car. Like when I tell
Right.
them this was my memory of childhood, they were like, no, 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 you didn't eat in the car. I'm like, no, I ate in the car many times. And
Yeah.
they were like, why would you do that? I was like, because I was hungry and it was like made to be portable. And they are shocked like every single time that I had my dinner in the car, like stuffing my face. And I was like, no, this was actually really common. I think it's still pretty common. And
Oh
the
yeah.
other like really interesting thing I've noticed is that it's really hard to get to-go coffee here. Like to
Oh yeah.
I don't see
It's true.
anyone with their like cup walking around with their
No.
coffee. Like no one has one of those coffee mugs here. Like they literally sit down and just
Yes.
have their coffee. And it's actually like if you ask, like they don't even have to-go cups, even if you were like, oh, can I get it to go? They don't have
They
that.
won't.
They'll just be
Yeah.
like, why don't you just sit down and drink it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
What is wrong with you?
yeah, so like in the US, that's such a part of life, right? To have your to-go coffee mug or your to-go teacup and like have it in the car because you're sipping it in the car and then you bring it to
Yeah.
work, right? And that's just not something that happens here. So I understand like just like the little things that are so different just from
Just yeah, and it totally helps change your pace of life.
does.
And even when you still have an American mindset, because we do, and we're like, we got to
Yeah,
do something. Like, we got to, there's work to be done, but it's
yeah.
Sunday. Like,
Right.
stop. Well, it's like even in real estate, I did real estate in America and everything just moves faster in America. And, for better or for worse, in some cases it's better because, the transactions get done faster. But here it's like, we're going to go home for Christmas for 2 weeks during the Christmas break. And I don't feel FOMO for
Mm.
leaving for 2 weeks because everything is shutting down. Like everything is like the banks aren't going to be processing mortgages after December 15th.
Wow.
They're
There.
checked out, man. It's Christmas. So don't even you're not missing anything. There's no FOMO that you're missing business because literally everybody is chilling during some of these breaks, and that includes July and August too. So um, you know, so I don't feel bad leaving the
Mhm.
real estate business for 2 weeks when I come because nothing would be done in those times anyway. And the whole community kind of rotates around the school schedule as well. So even with the ones that aren't the vacations that aren't you know, the like a religious holiday or something that's celebrated nationally, the yoga studios will go on pause during the breaks.
Yeah.
It's just like everything
That's
kind of just
amazing.
rotates
That's
around it.
like the society itself is going on pause. And so it's really
Yeah.
hard to then keep going because literally you will have no one that's going to do business with you at that time because
Yeah,
they're,
so it's okay. So it's
yeah,
not a big deal that I'm gonna go home for 2 weeks and
yeah,
I'm not missing out. But here, I mean, people would in real estate, people would take a break on Christmas. It's just like if there was a transaction that was going down, there was work to be done, everything is gonna happen
yeah,
on any of those days except Christmas. So yeah, real estate transactions take much longer here.
yeah.
But then again, it's not high speed, high stress. It's like, I mean, as an American, sometimes we have a little bit of stress because I'm like, why isn't anybody writing me back? Like,
Yeah,
should I be
yeah,
worried? Like, what is this? But it's just like the pace, and no one's going to write you after 5. Don't make a business text after, 5 or 6 p.m. because
yeah,
you're actually probably being a bit rude. And then also they may not get back to you anyway. So just wait until the next day. It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like, I still remember this one time over the weekend, someone who was coming to like repair something in our house texted to see if he could come on Monday and he apologized like there were like 10 apology messages.
Right.
And then he was like, I'm so sorry to like contact you on a Saturday. I know this is your time off. I apologize. I'm just like trying to get my schedule together and I have this window and I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh wow, like to me, I'd be like, oh sure, yes, you can come. But I understood that like contacting someone for business on a weekend is a no-go. It's just you don't
Right.
do it. And if you do it, you do not expect them to respond.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've had to be really careful to not contact people about business on weekends because they really do think it's rude that you're intruding on their time with their family or their time to just leisure
Right.
time, whatever that is. And so I agree, like it actually does make you, like the Americans, slow down as well because no one else is going to respond to you. No one else is going to be like working or doing anything for you. So you might as well just kind of go with the flow and chill
Right.
out. I
Just
think
chill.
when I think about like what I love, sounds like France is very similar. The weekends are very sacred here. Like they are
Hmm.
not for work. And in the US, like it didn't matter. Like even if I wasn't on call, I would still be checking my work email because sometimes you'd get emails from like residents or interns or other attendings talking about your patients. And I would still check it and I would be like, oh, I don't have to respond because I'm not on call, but then I would anyways. And then
Yeah.
set up this expectation of like,
Right.
oh, if you email this doctor, she's going to respond on the weekend, even if she's not on call. So then people, did it more. But here it's like weekends are so precious. They're so sacred. And when you go out, people are like enjoying. They're like
Yep.
slowed down. They're actually enjoying. They're not on their phone. They're not like stressed out when they're doing their jog. Like the stressed
Mhm.
out jog in Boston was so common. Here they're just jogging.
Stressed out jog.
Yeah,
That's
like on the
funny.
weekend, I'm telling you, like Sunday
You could
morning
tell.
jog, you could tell they were so stressed out because if I was on the bike path with my kid and my kid was trying to learn how to ride the bike, and they swerve, they don't stay to the right side, but there would always be a jogger who would be like, get out of the way, you asshole, to my child, right? And I'm like,
Oh no.
you went on a
Wow.
Sunday morning jog, like
Yeah.
chill out.
Right.
Point of the jog is for you to chill out. But I call
Oh
it the
my gosh.
stressed out jog because that was just so common.
You are, that is so true. I felt like that's what okay, I always have just had some distaste for exercise that was like scheduled like that. That was like forced exercise. I love getting out and hiking and doing things like that because it's like there's a point to it. I don't like exercise where it's like you're just rowing on a row machine for the sake of, getting your half an hour of
Yeah.
calorie burning in.
Yeah.
And so here it's like, yeah, randonnée or hiking and going for long leisurely walks is like totally a thing. And I actually just did that yesterday with a friend and and we're driving around and I realized with my watch that I, had burned as many calories as I would have if I had done like, 30 minutes on a Peloton
Right.
in my day. I mean, of course, my day would be much more sedentary in general, but like for a daily activity, I just did that just hanging out and just like tooling around,
Yeah.
and it's just like, I don't know, there's just much more of a culture, obviously, of just park and walk, and your parking spot may not be next to where you're going. And it's like, and that's great. I love
Right.
it.
Yeah. So any advice for a fellow physician who's, thinking about moving abroad, they've maybe like they're curious about it, they're looking into it. What would you say to them?
Oh boy, you can do it. You can do
Mhm.
it. Yeah, I mean, okay, it takes some obviously it takes some bravery. I wouldn't say that about myself, but I had a friend who said you're really brave, and I didn't think about that, but maybe I am. It takes a little bit of a leap of faith, for sure. Um, it doesn't take as much money as you think at all, and also in America, this is beside the point, but we save too much. I mean, we need to because in America we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't know how much healthcare is going to cost. We don't know how much we're going to need in retirement. So sometimes when I see the numbers of some of these folks who are saving for retirement, it blows my mind because it just seems so obnoxious that we have to just keep saving and we don't know where the end is. And I think that's part of where this like hamster wheel, like anxiety comes from as doctors too. But anyway, you can come to a place where there's inflation here, but in general, everything is stable. It's stable. you're going to be taken care of. Your health insurance is covered. It's stable and it's safe. It's safe. We didn't even go about that. It's safe, just full stop safe. And yeah, so it's totally doable. You can do it. And, especially from the locum standpoint, it's totally an option. Or if you just have enough money in savings, you can totally do it. If you have real estate income, there's a lot of creative ways that you can support your time here, because it really doesn't take as much money as you think to do this. And also language wise, many people are afraid of language. And I mean, I personally live in a wonderful area that is actually a tourist town. Carcassonne is a tourist town. And so most of the shops, all like the restaurants, they're all used to people not speaking French. And in fact, I walk in and they like, okay, she looks foreign, or I'm speaking English to my daughter or whatever. And they'll just start straight away with English, and which doesn't offend me at all. I just know that they are just ready for a tourist. And they have a lot of Spanish tourists here too. So it's not just English or English speaking tourists. So anyway, language wise, it's very approachable and doable, and you can learn French here. It's okay. Yeah, and even bringing your kids for school is doable. That takes even more of a leap of faith for sure, because it really will depend on your kid and like, where you're at in life and this and that. So I think there's a little bit more to consider obviously for that, but yeah, if you have the right kid and the right personality and the right time in their life, totally doable. Absolutely.
Well, those are wonderful, wonderful words and wonderful advice, I think, from someone who has made the leap. I also think like locums is such a great opportunity where you can try out living in whatever destination you're thinking of. And it doesn't have to be this huge commitment. You could maybe do locums for a week or two and then try out living wherever it is that you're thinking of. And it gives you that flexibility. And that, I think that's stability too, to be like, okay, I have I have my income, it's coming from someplace, and I get an option to like try out something that I've been curious about. So I think that's a great flexibility locums provides for sure.
Yeah, I think you've talked to a couple of doctors, right, that have been traveling, kind of traveling the world too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, locums is super flexible. And I've known of people who have made creative schedules with their group as well. So or their private practice even that they've just been and I think sometimes we get a little bit locked into this kind of rigid thinking of how we're supposed to be. But if you're creative and, people around you are okay with you being creative, and I think honestly, administration needs to be more creative, because otherwise you're just going to lose them full stop. If you're not creative with supporting a different schedule or a part-time schedule. Yeah. So anyway, if you're creative and you have just a little bit of a bravery to ask, you never know what they're going to say. So I recommend that people explore it for sure, and don't just assume that it won't work.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Carrie Reynolds, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your story and what the process, the journey that you've been on. So I really appreciate your time and your experience and your insights.
Thanks for having me.
And if you're looking to start your own adventure, make sure to grab your free ebook, How to Start Your Adventure. Sign up at hippocraticadventures.com/subscribe. And best of all, when you sign up, you'll also get our free email weekly newsletter where we share tips and strategies about moving abroad that we don't share anywhere else. So make sure to sign up now. And with that, we wrap up another episode of Discovering Where Your White Coat Can Take You. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a colleague or friend, because this really helps us reach more physicians who want to move abroad and just don't know how.